What do you imagine first when you hear the word war? Perhaps you picture long days in trenches or cities occupied and cut off from the rest of the world for whole months. The hungry, everyday life of people forced to endure the hardships of war for years, or the fiercest battles on the front line where each meter gained costs many weeks and human lives. Well, not all wars are like that. Sometimes to win a war, it is enough to take just a couple of shots and spend a little more than half an hour. This is how the Anglo-Zanzibar War, the shortest war in history, looked. This war took place in 1896, but to better understand the entire picture, we should start with the events of 1890. It was then that the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty was signed between Britain and Germany. This treaty effectively defined the spheres of influence of the two powers in East Africa. Zanzibar was transferred to Britain, while Germany secured the mainland part of Tanzania. Britain declared the island of Zanzibar its protectorate and recognized the power over the region under its puppet sultan named Hamad ibn Thawani. By becoming the protector of Zanzibar, the British Empire defined two primary political objectives: the abolition of slavery and the restoration of the island's economy. These goals, and especially the methods to achieve them, outraged many, particularly Zanzibar's merchants, who planned to profit from the fish trade thanks to rising spice prices. The plantations where spices were grown needed cheap labor. The predecessor of Sultan Hamad, Sultan Ali ibn Said, resisted British Empire policies as best he could, but after his death, supporting the puppet candidate, it was decided that their hands were now untied. However, instead, the palace was seized by the rebellious Khalid ibn Barghash. He declared that as the son of Barghash and Said II, the Sultan of Zanzibar, he was the rightful heir. Britain refused to recognize his claims, asserting that according to the treaty, no one could assume the position of Sultan of Zanzibar without the British Empire's permission. However, more loyal to Britain, Hamad ibn Thawani died, and Khalid ibn Barghash refused to obey, leading to military confrontation. Khalid had modest weaponry by the standards of that time, but it was adequate for a small East African country that, if it had ever been truly independent, had not been so for long. The Sultan had a 3,000-strong army, several artillery pieces, and even modestly armed the royal yacht Glasgow. In the neighboring harbor, the British gathered a contingent of 400 loyal islanders and British Marines. They had 5 powerful ships of the Royal Fleet at their disposal. Rear Admiral Harry Rawson sent an ultimatum to Khalid, ordering him and his troops to leave the palace territory and surrender their arms by 9 a.m. on August 27th. The day before, the British had demanded that all non-military vessels leave the harbor. Receiving the ultimatum, the Sultan decided not to accept the terms, believing that the British were merely trying to intimidate them and would not proceed to actual combat. Between him and the British representative, the following exchange of remarks occurred. He said, "We do not intend to lower our flag and do not believe that you will open fire on us," to which the British representative replied, "We have no desire to shell the palace. But if you do not comply with the order, we will certainly do it." The Marines made an example of punctuality and fidelity to their word. At exactly 9 a.m. on August 27th, Harry Rawson ordered 3 of his ships, the Sparrow, the Heron, and the Starling, to open fire on the palace. The palace immediately caught fire. However, in response, the Sultan's warship Glasgow opened fire on His Majesty's ship, the St. George, which caused no damage to the British. However, Zanzibar's artillery was almost entirely destroyed by around 9:02. Apparently, it was at that moment Khalid decided to flee, using a secret exit from the palace and leaving his warriors and servants to defend the blazing palace, which could have ended right then, just 2 minutes after it began. However, the British did not know what was happening inside the palace and saw that the Zanzibar flag was still flying. They interpreted this as a challenge, even though in reality, there was simply no one to lower it. The entire area around the flagpole was engulfed in flames, so the British simply continued shelling until the flagpole with the Zanzibar flag fell under the shells. Then they ceased fire and landed on the island to ensure that no one was trying to resist them. That is how the Anglo-Zanzibar War, which lasted only 38 minutes, came to an end, entering history as the shortest war and claiming the lives of no fewer than 500 residents of Zanzibar. The British Empire restored the destroyed palace and appointed a new Sultan of Zanzibar, already fully loyal to them, Hamad ibn Muhammad. He would lead Zanzibar for 6 years and receive a knighthood for freeing the slaves. The rebellious Sultan Khalid, after fleeing from the burning palace, sought refuge in the German consulate, from where he would be transported abroad. From the perspective of British historiography, this colonial war has tragic significance, demonstrating the brutality and inflexibility of colonial policy and how dependent and defenseless the colonies were in the face of it.